So, good day, ma'am. I am Arnel Peligrino, and I am here to discuss about the chapter 6, which is entitled The Tourism Public Sectors. So, these chapters deals with particular government agencies directly involved in the promotion of tourism in our country. Several allied government agencies may also be included in this chapter as these agencies, though not directly involved in the promotions of tourism, tend to provide a substantial contributions to the efficient operations of the tourism industry. So the learning objectives in this chapter is identify the various government agencies involved in the development and promotions of the tourism industry as well as their functions. Second is describe the relationship of these agencies with one another. And last is explain the possibility of public services as a career in the industry. So the first one is the Department of Tourism, or also known as DOT. So DOT was created by a virtue of Presidential Decree number 189. It is the primary policy making, planning, programming, coordinating, and administrative entity of the executive branch of government in the development of the tourism industry, both domestic and international. So DOT has a major functions. So the first one is the supervise all activities of government which concerns tourism. Second is effect the removal of unnecessary barriers to travel, the integrations and simplifications of travel regulations, as well as their efficient, fair, and courteous enforcement to assure expeditious and hospitable receptions of all visitors. Formulate an integrated program for promotions and publicity designed to attract and induce people abroad to visit Philippines, patronize things which are Philippine made, and to enhance the prestige of the Filipino and the Republic. Review all tourism projects which may involve loans from government, financial institutions before said institutions may take actions on them, and approve all tourism projects and firms applying for tax incentives under the Export Incentives Act as amended by Presidential Decree number 92 before the Board of Investment may take action on them. Represent the government in all such conferences and meetings concerning tourism and travel and discharge such responsibilities of the government as may arise from treaties, agreements, and other commitments of tourism and travel to which it is signatory. Accredit travel agents, tour operators, and tour guides. Classify an accredited hotel, resort, inns, motels, hotels, restaurants, and other related facilities and services which cater to foreign and domestic tourists, and in addition formulate suitable standards to ensure that the highest possible standards are met. Reasonable fees and charges are made and that services are given with honesty, courtesy, and efficient. And lastly, perform such other function as may be provided by law. The second is the Philippine Tourism Authority. So, Presidential Decree 564 was enacted revising the charter of the Philippine Tourism Authority, which was originally created under Presidential Decree number 189. Strengthening the Philippine Tourism Authority, or PTA, was needed in order to be in a better position to effectively unify and integrate the related activities and services of both government and private entities pertaining to tourism development project. Travel tax collection is PTA main source of income. Travel tax is a levy imposed by the government on individuals, permanent residents, aliens who have stayed in the country for more than a year, who are leaving the country irrespective to the place where the air ticket is issued, as provided for by Presidential Decree 1183 as amended by Batas Pambansang and EO 283, and travel tax payment of travel taxes are coursed through the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR. So, PTA has the following general powers. They to implement policies and programs of the Department of Tourism pertaining to the development, promotions, and supervisions of tourism project in the Philippines, to promote the development into integrated resort complex of selected and well-defined geographic areas with potential tourism value, known otherwise as tourist zones, to extend all forms of assistance to private enterprise in undertaking tourism project, to undertake for its own account or in joint venture with the private sectors the operations and the maintenance of essential tourist facilities which private enterprise alone is not prepared or willing to undertake, to assure availability of land at reasonable price or rental rates for private investors in hotels, other tourist facilities. And lastly is to coordinate, assess, and implement tourism-related plans or operations of local governmental agencies, public corporations, and where clearly necessary and feasible, those of private entities, so as to make possible the accelerated and balanced growth and development of tourism in the Philippines, which is responsive to the needs of targeted markets here and abroad. The third one is the Intramuros administration. So, for 400 years, Intramuros has been a priceless heritage of the past for the city of Manila and a major historical landmark of the Philippines. In order to preserve and enhance a historical value of Intramuros, a national historical consciousness programs demands its restorations, development, and maintenance, and for this purpose, hence Presidential Decree number 1616 creating the Intramuros administration was created charged with such vital role and responsibility. The Intramuros administral shall be responsible for the orderly restorations and development of Intramuros as a monument to the Hispanic period of the Philippine history. It shall also ensure that the general appearance of Intramuros shall conform to Philippine Spanish architectures of the 16th to the 19th century. So, the Intramuros administrations has the following functions. First is to formulate, coordinate, and or execute policies on the implementations of all programs, projects, and activities of the government affecting or relating to Intramuros. Enter to a contract with any private persons or entity or any government agency, either domestic or foreign, whenever necessary, for the effective discharge of each functions and responsibilities under such terms and conditions as it may deem paper and proper and reasonable. Excuse me. Acquired through sale, expropriations, or other means, hold real and personal property as it may deem necessary or convenient, in the successful prosecutions of its work, unlease, mortgage, sell, alienate, or otherwise dispose of such personal and real property, receive, take, and hold by bequest, devise, donation, gift, purchase, or lease from foreign or domestic sources, either absolutely or in trust for any for any of its purposes, any assets, grants, or property, real or personal, subject to such limitations as are provided in existing laws and regulations. To convey such assets, grant or proper, invest and reinvest the same, and deal with and expand its assets and income in such manner as will be promote its objectives. Initiate, plan, undertake, and supervise the restorations, upkeep, and maintenance of intramuros walls, including the riverlands, moat, sunken garden, and public places or areas, plazas, streets, and other government-owned or managed properties situated within intramuros. So, prepare, adopt, revise, and enforce such rules and regulations implementing guidelines and standards as are necessary for the effective regulations of the land use and development activities in intramuros of both the government and private entities, and for implementations of the intramuros plan, including but not limited to development rules and regulation pertaining to the following. So these are the rules and regulations pertaining to development activities in intramuros. First is land use allocation, use of buildings, their height, dimensions, architectural styles and designs, and other specifications of the buildings construction to be undertaken therein. Traffic management, street usage, and other related matters. Size and character of display signs, advertising, billboards, and other external signs and advertisement in building, in open spaces, lots, or roads. And supervisions and control of all activities involving archaeological diggings, excavations, and exploration within intramuros, including the use, disposition, registrations, and maintenance of archaeological findings and discoveries. The functions of IA or the intramuros administrative: expropriate properties within intramuros, sponsors, conduct or otherwise assess and support festival and cultural activities in intramuros, and charge and collect admission fees to restored gates and attractions operated by the administration. Give grants, contributions, and donation for the restoration, repair, or maintenance of historic structure in intramuros, including San Agustin Church, and of structures outside of intramuros which are of similar natures and character as those which existed in intramuros for the conduct of historical, architectural, archaeological, and other research, and for other purposes in furtherance of each objectives. Prescribe and collect reasonable amounts to be charged as filing fees, inspections fees, permit fees, and other administrative or service fees necessary for the effective enforcement of its laws and regulatory measures to be used and dispersed by it in manner and determined by it promote its objective. So, government agencies. So these are the government agencies. The first is the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporations, or known as PAGCOR. PAGCOR is a government-owned and controlled corporation existing under Presidential Decree number 1869 issued on July 11, 1983 by President Ferdinand Marcos. So in Section 1, Declaration of Policy, it is hereby declared to be the policy of the state to centralize and integrate all games of chance not hereof authorized by existing franchise or permitted by law in order to attain the following objectives. So, to establish and operate clubs and casinos for amusement and recreation, including sports, gaming, pools, basketball, footballs, lotteries, and etc. are such other forms of amusement and recreation, including games of chance, which may be allowed by law within the territorial jurisdictions of the Philippines and which will minimize, if not totally eradicate, the evils, malpractices, and corruptions that are normally prevalent in the conduct and operation of gambling clubs and casino without direct government involvement. So, this is the Department of Labor and Employment, or also known as DULI. So, the function of Department of Labor and Employment are to enforce social and labor legislations to protect the working class and regulate the relation between the worker and his employees, formulate and recommend policies, plans, and programs for manpower, developing training, allocation, and utilizations, recommend legislations to enhance the material, social, and intellectual improvement of the nation's labor force, protect and promote the interests of every citizen desiring to work locally or overseas by securing for him the most equitable terms and conditions of employment, and by providing social and welfare services, regulate the employment of all aliens including the enforcement of registrations or work permit systems for such aliens, formulate general guidelines concerning wage, income policies, recommend necessary adjustment in wage structures with a view of developing a wage system that is consistent with national economic and social development plans. Provide for safe, decent, human, and improved working conditions and environment for all workers, particularly women and young workers. Maintain in a harmonious, equitable, and stable labor relations system that is supportive of the national economic policies and programs. Uphold the right of workers and employers to organize and promote free collective bargaining as the foundations of the labor relations system. And last, provide and ensure the fair and expeditious settlement and dispositions of labor and industrial disputes through collective bargaining, grievance machinery, conciliations, mediations, voluntary attribution, arbitrations, compulsory as may be provided by law, and other modes that may be voluntarily agreed upon by the parties concerned. So, Department of Transportations and Communication, also known as DOTC. So, Department of Transportation and Communication is the primary policy planning, programming, coordinating, implementing, and regulating administrative entity of the executive branch of the government in the promotions, development, and regulations of dependable and coordinated networks of transportations and communication system, as well as in the fast, safe, efficient, and reliable postal transportations and communication services. So these are the agencies that attach of the DOTC. So the Lands Transportation Office, or LTO, Maritime Industry Authority, or the Marina, Air Transportation Office, or ATO, Civil Aeronautic Board, or CAB, Light Rail Transit Authority, or LRTA, and Metro Rail Transit Corporations. So, the Department of Trade and Industry, also known as DTI, under Executive Order 133, which remains effective up to the present time. The Department of Trade and Industry serves as the primary coordinative, promotive, and facilitative arm for trade, industry, and investment activities. It acts as the catalyst for intensified private sector's activity to accelerate and sustain economic growth through a comprehensive industrial growth strategy, a progressive and social responsible liberalizations and deregulations program, and policies designed for the expansions and diversifications of both domestic and foreign trade. The end goal is to grow and expand Philippines' trade and industry as the means to generate jobs and raise incomes so that the Filipinos may enjoy continuing improvement in their quality of life. DTI shall empowered and authorized to issue rules and regulations and adopt measures as to consolidate or to coordinate all functions and effort in domestic trade and development of foreign trade in general, maintain reasonable allocations, distributions as between domestic and export market through export retentions, export allocation, export subsidy, pricing, export ban, and other schemes and measures to ensure price stability and supply availabilities, essential commodities in the local market. Regulate the import of essential consumers and producer items with a view of enhancing availability at fair and competitive price to end user, and promote and regulate domestic trade, marketing, and distributions to ensure the rational economic and steady flow of commodities from producing and or marketing centers to areas in short supply through the support of centralized buying operations, terminal markets, and large-scale and economical distribution system organized by the public and or private sectors. Board of Investment. So, under the Omnibus Investment Code of 1987 to 1987-27, the Board of Investment of BOI shall be responsible for the regulation and promotions of investment in the Philippines. So, BOI shall exercise the following powers and duties: prepare annually the investment priorities plan, which shall contain a listing of specific activities that can qualify or for incentives duly supported by the studies of existence and prospective demands for such product and service in the light of the level and structures of income, productions, trade price, and relevant economic and technical factors of the regions as well as existing facilities. Promulgate such rules and regulation as may be necessary to implement the intent and provisions of the code relevant to the board. Process and approve application for registration with the board, imposing such terms and conditions it may be deemed necessary to promote the objectives of the code, including refund of incentives with appropriate restricting availment of certain incentives not needed by project in the determinations of the board, requiring performance bonds and other guarantees, and payment of applications, registrations, publications, and other necessary fees, and when warranted may limit the availment of the tax holiday incentives to the extent that the investor's country law or treaties with the Philippines allows as credit for taxes paid in the Philippines. After due hearing, decided controversies concerning the implementations of the relevant books of the code that may arise between registered enterprise or investors therein and government agencies within 33 days 3 days after the controversy has been submitted for decisions, provided that the investor of the registered enterprise may appeal the decision of the board within 30 days from receipt thereof of the President. Recommended to the Commissioners of Immigration and Deportations the entry of the Philippines for employment of foreign nationals under the code. Periodically check and verify either by inspections of the books or by requiring regular reports the proportions of the participations of Philippines nationals in registered enterprise to ascertain compliance with its qualification to retain registrations under the code. Periodically check and verify the compliance by registered enterprise with the relevant provisions of the code, the rules and regulations related therein with the terms and conditions of registrations. After due notice, cancel and restrictions of suspend the enjoyment of incentives, benefits of any registered enterprise, and or require refund of incentives enjoyed by such enterprise, including interest and monetary penalties, for a failure to maintain the qualifications required by the code for registration with the board for violation of the provision of the code of the rules and regulation issued thereof, of the terms and conditions of registrations or of laws for the protections of labor of the consuming public, provided that the registrations of an enterprise whose project timeable as set by the board is delayed by 1 year shall be considered automatically cancelled unless otherwise reinstated as a registered enterprise by the board. Determine the organizational structures, appoint, discipline, and remove its personnel consistent with the provisions of civil service laws and rules. Prepare or contract for the preparations for feasibility and other pre-investment studies for pioneer areas either upon its own initiative or upon the request of the Philippine nationals who commit themselves to invest therein and shows the capability of doing so, provided that if the venture is implemented, then the amount advanced by the board shall be repaid within 5 years from the date the commercial operation of said enterprise start. So, Department of Interior and Local Government, or also known as the DILG. The function of DILG is to assess the President in the exercise of general supervision over local government, advise the President in the promulgations of policies, rules, regulations, and other issuance on the general supervisions over local government and on public order and safety, establish and prescribe rules, regulations, and other issuance implementing laws in public order and safety, the general supervisions over local government and promotions of local autonomy and committee empowerment and monitor compliance thereof, provide assistance towards legislations regarding local governments, law enforcement and public safety, and establish and prescribe plans, policies, programs, and projects to promote peace and order, ensure public safety, and further strengthen the administrative, technical, and fiscal capabilities of local government office and personnel. So, formulate plans, policies, and programs which will meet local emergencies arising from natural and man-made disasters. Establish a system of coordination and cooperation among the citizenry, local executives, and departments to ensure the effective and efficient delivery of basic services to the public. Organize, train, and equip primarily for the performance of policies, functions, and policies. Force and is national in scope and civilian in character. Bureau of Food and Drugs, or BFUD. The Bureau of Food and Drug is an attached agency under the Department of Health in charge of the registrations of processed foods, drugs, medical devices, in vitro diagnostic reagent, cosmetics, and household hazardous substance products. In case these products will have to be hand carried or mailed for personal consumptions abroad, consumers may go directly to the BFAD Policy, Planning, and Advocacy Divisions, Public Assistance and Compliance Divisions. Consumers are advised to bring for verifications product samples and the doctor's prescriptions for prescriptions drug product. So, Bureau of Customs. So, under Republic Act 1937, entitled Revising the Tariff and Customs Laws, the General Duties as amended by Republic Act No. 9135, the powers and jurisdiction of the Bureau shall include assess and collect lawful revenues, prevent smuggling and other frauds, control vessels or aircraft doing foreign trade, enforce tariff and custom laws, control and handling of foreign mails for revenues and prevention purposes, control import and export cargoes, and jurisdictions over forfeitures and seizures cases. The Philippine Coast Guard. So, by virtue of the Republic Act No. 5173, the Philippine Coast Guard has been created as an attached agency of the Department of Transportations and Communications with the following objectives: to enforce or assess the enforcement of all applicable laws upon the high seas and water subject to the jurisdictions of the Republic of the Philippines, to enforce laws, promulgated administration regulations for the promotions of safety and life, property within the maritime jurisdictions of the Philippines, and to develop, establish, maintain, and operate with due regard to the requirements of national defense and to maritime navigation and rescue facilities for the promotion, safety, and over the high seas and waters subject to the jurisdictions of the Philippines. Professional Regulatory Board of Custom Brokers. Pursuant to the national policy, the government shall provide a program to set up a climate conducive to the practice of the profession and maximize the capability and potential of our Filipino customs brokers. Hence, Republic Act No. 19280 was enacted regulating the practice of custom brokers professions in the Philippines and creating the Professional Regulatory Board for Custom Brokers. This act provides for and shall govern the standardizations and regulations of custom administrations, educations, the examinations and registration of custom brokers, and the supervisions, control, and regulations of the practice and the custom brokers professions. The Nayong Filipino Foundations, or NPF. The Nayong Filipino Foundation was created under the Presidential Decree No. 37 on November 16, 1972, with the intention of promoting, encouraging, and initiating research and development projects and activities in social science, humanities, and social and ameliorations allied fields. The foundation is a non-stock, non-profit, public corporation organized, established, and operated in the public interest, and no portion of its funds and income shall inure to the benefit of any of its members. The last is the Tourism Enterprise Zone Authority, or the TESA. Under the Tourism Act, the Tourism Enterprise Zone Authority, TESA, is empowered to administer tourism zones, regulate tourism zones, enterprise, and grant tax perks. And that's all. Thank you.